On that note, why don't we get started? People will be joining. That's all fine. Let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. I'm going to share my screen. Uh, Lovely. So there's a bit of a bait and switch today. Denny was going to give a convention update, which I'll give in just a second. We're going to ask those staff members who are here to give us some brief reports. And then in a little bit of a format change, particularly because we have a light crowd today, I think we'd like to go right to the show and tell section. We've got 6-7 people who have RSVP'd as desiring to give a presentation. Others of you may want to hop on. I think this is an area where we can really make these meets something special, particularly as we're doing them virtually. And I really want to encourage everybody to participate in these show and tells. The Zoom calls are being recorded and archived, and we're saving them on the YouTube channel and actually publicizing them for people to come back later and see some of the content. But I'm really hoping that we can have terrific content, and I'm really hoping that will make people very pleased with their membership and experience with the NMRA and with RED, so forth and so on. So Al, Dave, John Schmidt when he arrives, Dave Grunman, Mike Latant, Bill Kaufman, and I will all present a little bit later. And then we'll let the picnic get started and we'll just hang out and see what happens from there. So let me spend a second then in talking about some of the convention updates that Denny asked me to provide to you. The big push now as a plan for the convention, which is at the end of April, is generating clinics, layout tours, op sessions, and for that matter, submissions for the contests. As I think about late April, it feels to me like it's so far away. And in fact, it's not. It'll be on us really quickly. And one of the things that I asked Denny, because it's sometimes tiresome. I feel like I go to a convention, as I did with Rails by the Bay, and immediately I'm being solicited for registering for the next one. And it feels invasive in some ways. And I asked Denny to kind of comment on that. Why is it important to register early? And she talked about the fact that their planning process is so dependent on the number of people that register. And they're really asking, if you're planning on going, giving them a break by signing up early. The additional incentive is that there's an early bird discount. If you do that now, or just on the website, looking at different packages, it's a $20 savings, which is not a small savings. The whole convention package is $140. That includes the banquets and all that. But if you want to skinny up a little bit and do one day as day passes, but either way, really encourage us all to help the committee. If you plan on going, please register early. I also asked Denny to comment a little bit about the COVID thing. It's really hard to know what this convention is going to look like, what people are going to be comfortable doing. It's just too early. And the world's going to change a lot as we move into the winter, and it's going to change a lot as we move into the spring. So the committee is actively thinking about different ways to sort of maximize the experience, keep safety high, and be able to, shuck and jive as developments, come about. So rest assured, no surprise, everyone's aware that COVID colors our plans and our desire to forward think. But this convention is full speed ahead. It's planned to be an in-person convention with all the protocols in place, so it's very exciting. A couple of other changes, it may or may not be material to you. There's a vendor show. The vendors who are coming, we're very interested in making it a 2-day show, not one, to make it worth the trip. So it's now a 2-day vendor show, Thursday and Friday. Friday night is a swap meet, which is awesome. We've got so much equipment here and around to just get stuff moving through the system. If you have a hotel reservation for the convention, you get a free table for the Friday night swap meet, which I think is really fantastic. I also was shopping in the company store a little bit, and actually I was surprised. The convention car is fantastic looking car, hats, shirts, the mugs are pending and all that. So do take a look and do register. As we talk about the clinic push, which Al, I know you're very involved in, and the contest push, which Giuseppe is very involved in. Is there any comments that either you guys want to make about either of those two areas?
Well, I would just simply say that the clinics are often one of the best parts of a convention, and you guys here up on the screen here are mostly all pros, and I have never done a clinic, but I believe that presenting a clinic is probably one of the most rewarding things. So I simply encourage everyone to please consider presenting, doing a clinic. And that's all I've got to say about it right now.
So Al, what if, I mean, I've done a lot of clinics, many of us have. What if you've never done a clinic, and you feel like there's things that you have to say about your own modeling experience that are interesting, but it's daunting, working through PowerPoint and all that. How do we encourage people who have never done it before to at least know that the crowd is super interested in what everybody has to say and what everybody has to present, even if it's on an obscure topic? Is that fair?
Very fair, very good question. Um, I'm going to be sending out, I've already contacted a fair amount, about 30 people that I put in my A list uh, for uh, early notice of what's going on. But then I'm going to be sending out a much greater uh, email blast to PCR people. And Paul, I would like your help actually in writing that notice to help encourage brand new people who might be thinking about that, or I could use anybody's help in that regard. I don't know what the exact right words are, but maybe together we can come up with something pretty good.
Yeah, that'd be a pleasure, but I think part of the message is that first-time presenters just should not be intimidated. They don't have to be published authors or anything like that. I think we're even proving it with our own RED meets. Just almost anything you have to say about your own modeling journey is very interesting to people.
Hmm.
And I've seen over the years, I've seen clinics on topics that I had no interest in, but they're very compelling because it's a knowledgeable presenter who spends time putting their thoughts together. It's a lot of fun.
One thing that I've seen in the past is having one clinic where people don't have enough information for a full clinic, so you divide it up and have 4 or 5 people.
Yeah, I would.
And it was worthwhile. I mean, different subjects and people batting stuff around. It was worthwhile.
And I was going to say something very similar. If you're a little bit intimidated because you haven't done it before and you want to bring a buddy and do a tag team thing, as long as you've kind of synced up who's going to say what, that can be very effective. No question about it.
Yeah, well, Providenza and I used to do a bunch of group presentations. We did trying to think. I remember doing. We did meatball scenery, and there's 2 guys opening up the cans and throwing things at me, and yeah, it's ugly, but it works.
Can I jump in with a thought here? Everybody, like Bill, Providenza, a lot of people here on the screen have done a lot of clinics, but every one of you did a first clinic. So might throw that out as far as looking for people that everybody, the Ed Marins, go up to National, and the Tony Kester gave a first clinic at some time. And they weren't quite as polished as they are right now. So
45 minutes of pure terror.
Jump right in. Yeah, but it'll be fun. You'll see.
Well, certainly in my case, I did a first clinic, but I had done public speaking in my life. So I didn't feel like it was that big of a deal, where other people who maybe haven't done public speaking in a group may find it just a pressure cooker. And importantly, I don't think it is. One of the things I've enjoyed about giving clinics is the crowd is extremely friendly, right? And even if you're making a point and someone has a different experience, it's always been constructive, right? Or in the form of a question. Hey, haven't you had a bad experience with metal wheels on metal trucks or something like that? So it's very collaborative and friendly, and people, all of the prospective clinic presenters have been in a crowd and can see it doesn't get ugly or hostile or judgy or anything like that. It's just a nice, relaxed format. And furthermore, if technology is the limiter, comfort with PowerPoint or comfort with
Mhm.
connecting. We have resources to help overcome that.
Yeah,
Really,
yeah.
really.
Well,
That can all be farmed out.
speaking of resources, I'd like to be able to offer potential first-time clinicians a few names, or including myself, to offer help to first-time clinicians. So I'll be contacting all of you to get help for the next email that I send out. Okay.
Yes. Wonderful. Okay, so enough on that. We do need to spend a second on division business. Giuseppe, did you want to add anything on the contest side that we haven't?
On the
discussed?
contest side, not much to add, other than always writing articles. One will appear in the next branch line
Yes.
on bringing models and also the time frame of starting bringing models, to build a model, not to wait for the last minute. But it's always up to individuals to decide they want to challenge contest. And there's a lot of fear about contests. There's a lot of fear about forms. And so I'll be available to help people with forms and make it as easy as possible. We're also stressing show and tell at the contest because that reduces the amount of fear people have. There's no forms to be filled out, and people can show all their work. And bring models that have won first prize in other contests, which otherwise would not be available for us to see. So we're really pushing on that. And my goal is to have probably over 75 models for contest. We've done it in the past. We've done up to 100, and to have as many models for show and tell as possible. So I encourage everybody right now listening to bring 1 or 2 models that they've done in the past, no matter what it is. Contest also involves arts and crafts, and we forget that. We always think about train models, but there's the art and crafts portion of it that can bring out your artistic ability in any aspect of the arts and crafts. So that's one area to look at. And thirdly, photography, and Ed Marin is a good voice for that because he's done beautiful work. But try photography, bring in photographs of things you've done or prototypical or whatever. So that aspect is there too. So we only go by articles that I write, or anybody else in this panel who wants to write an article for the branch line, more than welcome. The more, the better.
Yeah, one quick note. I put the link to the convention website in the chat box.
And I'm copying on it right now. Thank you.
Also, Giuseppe, it's a bit of a technical question. So on our layout in Novato, Vern has done some beautiful work on freight cars. Can I grab a few of those and take full credit for myself? Is there, I mean, I don't know what the rules are. I haven't won a contest before, but that'd be my best shot.
Help yourself.
In contest, I mean, if the question is a serious one, in contest, you have to be the builder of the model.
Yeah, no, not
show
that.
and tell.
Yes.
In show and tell, you don't have to. So you can actually grab a whole bunch of those, even the one in your hands, and bring it for show and tell, and say, see, it's got 2 trucks and 4
Yeah. Yeah.
a
It's,
wheel, yeah.
Yeah.
You can do
Sounds
that.
like, yeah, it'd be nice if it had the other.
It'd be a maintenance void diorama or something. Yeah,
That'd be a
Giuseppe,
good show and tell thing, Paul, if you got one car from each of several different members down there and show it up and say, here's what our guys are doing.
yeah, there you go. That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Would be great.
And Giuseppe, just for the record, I haven't said anything serious since 1988.
I'm getting to know you a little better.
Yeah, and so far that I would hate to blow it today. It's such a long-standing streak. Okay, great. So we got that.
Operations?
Sorry,
A question or a pitch about operations
a pitch about operations.
for the convention?
Yeah, Doug is the operations coordinator for the convention.
So you'd like to make a pitch?
I'd like to make a pitch.
Yes,
real quick.
of course. Yeah. Sorry, I
Okay,
thought you were
okay.
asking. thought you were
I'm the
asking me.
coordinator of operations, and I haven't had a whole lot to coordinate yet. We've got 5 signups, 5 yeses, and a couple of maybes, which is probably enough for the number of convention signups we've got so far. But if things happen to go well, perish the thought, and we do have 120 or so people show up, we've still got 5 yeses and 2 maybes, which is not nearly enough.
Okay,
So
so wait, you're talking about layout tour hosts, operating session hosts, or operating?
operating session hosts,
Okay,
layouts for operations during the convention.
got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and we don't have enough. So what I'd like to do is see if we can plan for everything to go well, everything to go normal, for the COVID thing to calm down. And then, maybe we've got a really good 6-week spot in there where everybody can get together and everybody can enjoy a lot of operating sessions, but we don't have nearly enough layouts for that right now. I'm going to be putting together a quick little Word format thing and put it on the website. I'll run it by my 2 guys that are helping, Peter and David, on that, and see what other ideas and things they have there. But I'd like to put that up. And if you think you might want to do an operating session, go ahead and start planning for it. Think about it, work on it. It's a lot easier if things go pear-shaped, then we have to cancel some of them out within 3 weeks before the convention than it is to fire up 8 more layouts 3 weeks before the convention.
Well,
So
even
it might be possible for you to host an operating session, and if you're at all interested, please get in touch with me and start working towards it right away.
and I obviously don't know who's on your list or whether we signed up. In Nevada, we'll do a tour, certainly.
Right. I think I had you down for a tour. I've got Jim, Tom, a bad case of brain fade right now. I can't remember everybody.
Hey, Doug, count me in on that for the Nicasio.
Yeah,
Thank you, Bill.
yeah, we're definitely wondering who's up for your operating, because I know here in Marin County, there's at least 4 good operating layouts. John's got one, I've got one, Paul's got one, Jim's got one.
Yeah, we won't be operating for the convention, but we can do a tour.
I'll probably operate for the convention if I got to come down. But it's only, mine is not great. Mine is only 6 people. I mean,
That's fine.
yeah, but that's what it is. That's the limit on it. And there's no way to get more people in. Now I can do 2 or 3 of them over the course of a time, and I've done that. But it takes, as you say, it takes some planning, it takes knowing, it takes being on the agenda and all those sorts of things.
Right.
So we got a couple, and I'm not sure if you guys were talking simultaneously, Doug. John Schmidt also signed up. Did you hear that?
Should be.
I think I've got his name down. Yes,
Okay.
I
yeah.
do now.
Yeah, he's not a bad guy. He's not a bad guy. Yeah,
Thanks,
Now you
Paul.
worry me now. You said you hadn't told the truth since '88.
yeah, it's true. He's a good looking guy, but he's not that bright. No, all kidding aside, John's layout's perfect for it, and
Mhm.
Bill's too. No, and in fact, maybe we can talk Bill Horstmeyer into it as well.
Yeah, he would be a lovely 5th one.
I don't know that he's a member, but I don't know that we care. Maybe we don't care.
He's a member.
Bill Horstmeyer's a member?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, if he's
Okay.
not, we can fix that by then.
Yeah, well,
We can do that.
yeah, we could, he'd be willing. Yes, certainly. Dave, anything you want to mention about the clerk's office, treasury, anything going on that it's worth
Sure.
reporting?
I've received a support check from the PCR, $51.50. And when we add that to our bank account, which I just received, we have a total in our bank account of 5319.10.
Yes, and so one of the things we talked about at the staff is it's nice to have a $5,000 balance and how to use it well. Obviously, we're all hoping to get back into a mode where we have some in-person events, maybe a real picnic, those kind of things. And in my mind, that's what the money is for, is to defray the cost of some of those things we'll be doing in the future. So
Mhm.
obviously, in the meantime, we're not running up a lot of bills, but we have great expectations. So
I've
Thank you
been
for
on,
that.
today I've been on the a Zoom with Great Northern Railway Historical Society. They're having their virtual convention this weekend, next weekend, and we just went through the board meeting. Their current cash balance is well over $300,000,
Wow.
but they also have almost 2,000 members.
Yeah.
And we have
Well,
what,
one of
111?
one of the things that used to be a huge drain, both on our resources and on PCR's resources, was publishing the newsletters, the call boards, the branch lines, the things like that. Those cost money. And if we're doing it electronically, that saves a whole lot. And so we can put our money towards things that people really
Yes.
care about.
We had this discussion at our last staff meeting. There is at least a person who believes we should go back to printing hard copies.
I wouldn't.
I agree with you, Bill. I don't think we should. I think, saving the money, it's a small matter, but there's also environmental considerations and all that stuff. Delivery by PDF in most circumstances seems like a very elegant way to do it. And if we have some exceptions of people who prefer to get a hard copy, we'll just print them out ourselves. And yes, as a result, there's a nice balance, and the balance is intended to be used for nice, happy model railroading things.
Mhm.
Along that issue, there are I think 5 or 6 that we have to mail, and I picked up 2 more that we'll have to mail. One
Yeah.
because that person doesn't have a computer anymore,
Yes.
and the second one is because their eyesight's so bad. He says that he can't read it online. So I'll forward that to the publisher.
Yes.
But the rest of them, what we're finding out is they don't actually read it online. They just don't read it for some reason.
Yeah.
But
Well-
I think what we
Yeah,
might
that's the
want to
problem.
recommend is we send out a postcard or something along that line to those who haven't been reading it.
Mhm. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Well, all you can do is have an excellent publication, right? And Scott's done an amazing job. It's a great publication. And to the extent that we can continue to help Scott by providing good content, the clinic stuff or whatever, people are going to want to seek it out. And just like the national magazines, to me, people will be talking to each other saying, hey, that was a neat, did you read that neat article, right, in the call board? Well, no. Well, you get it, don't you? Well, yeah, et cetera, et cetera. And so good content will bring people in, hopefully, and, we would have dispatched our duty very, very well. And along those lines, Scott, usually the schedule is that there'll be another another call board coming up soon after this meet. Is that correct? And
Yes, that's correct.
And as usual, a call for submissions, perhaps much along the lines of the clinics. Even if you haven't written something before or shared something before, what a great place to do it.
Yeah, if you're, again, models, I like to do a show and tell in the call board as well. And we get some really good content, and we have received some really good content in the past. So I'm always looking for more content. Here you go.
Yep.
That's perfect. And
Write an article, write an article on how to put trucks back on a.
you hold it up, I'll do a screenshot. If you hold it up right
I have
now,
a-
I'll do a screenshot. We can,
I have a
some
I have a
content.
15 slide PowerPoint on how to put the trucks back on.
And a 12-point PowerPoint on where they went anyhow.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, there's kind of a screw in there. You have to remove.
Sometimes, yeah.
How did they come off in the first place?
Right.
Well, that's a great question.
Was it a dive off?
And that's part of my PowerPoint. Those tiny short screws, man.
Oh,
Yeah, but there's
you know,
even some of them.
but if you use longer screws, it's you get a
anyhow.
wrist problem trying to take them on and off,
Well, there's that. I do use the long 1/4" 256 screws, and it does take an extra few seconds to get them all the way taut.
We don't want carpal tunnel.
But I don't want to give away my whole PowerPoint. I mean, the surprise factor be shot.
So anyway, yeah, anybody who has anything they want to submit, please send it to me. I think my email is pretty well known. In fact, I'll put it up here if I know how to do this in chat. And yeah, just send me anything you have. And I've got a few already set up for the call board, so the more the merrier. And it can be anything, layout. If you did a tour somewhere, I know we haven't been doing very many vacations, but even something in the past where you've been to a place, model railroad or live railroad, that's perfect.
Is it also fair to say, Scott, I mean, the highballers have been very active. Ed seems to be looking for content every hour. Even if something has been presented to the highballers, doesn't mean it's been seen by the whole division.
Right.
So it's certainly true, and I want to encourage, Ed and you guys, all those things. Al's going to present in a little bit. He said he's presented it before, totally fine, because I haven't seen it, other attendees haven't seen it. And the other thing, for the avoidance of doubt, as I said, we're recording the call, we're publicizing this video so that people can come around from even other divisions and see all the presentations. And we can be truly exemplary in this regard if we have these great presentations. So even though today we don't have a large crowd, hopefully this video will be widely seen and the presenters can feel really confident that they're adding to the greater good. And usually there's a membership report. Gus, I don't think is on board today, and the membership report is usually the same, no big change, of course. So we'll just rocket forward from there. Does anybody else have anything in sort of this business section before we get to some of the show and tell mini clinics that we have today?
Well, I do.
Yes.
As a director, I'm supposed to be giving a report.
Yes, sir.
Nothing to report.
Thank you.
You are.
I apologize. I assumed your contest part covered that as well, and it's bad management on my part.
And then as an AP chairman for the division, I have good news. And Dave Crozier just submitted, and I sent it off to Jack Burgess, his certificate for scenery. And so the scenery is 125 points, and Dave scored 121 out of 125. So beautiful scenery. I think for people who have not seen his layout, they really ought to make a trip to Sebastopol and look at it. It's gorgeous. So congratulations, Dave.
Thank you.
I'm glad you clarified that, because I thought you were saying that 125 is a minimum and he failed. I'm like, that's
no. I would never fail him. He took me out to lunch afterwards, so he always will get a good score.
I like that theory.
And here we have yet another burning ethical question about your department, Giuseppe.
I call it mafia style.
We keep towing these lines.
No pass, no lunch.
Yeah.
Amen. Well, that's
lunch. I like Dave's thing.
Yeah.
Truly,
and usually didn't get 125 because he didn't offer dessert.
No dessert.
No dessert. No.
Jeez.
So you're all warned about how to treat me, okay?
No, but Dave's layout is gorgeous, and it's going to be on the layout tour in April. So if you have never seen it, make sure you go see it.
Yeah, I agree.
I've gone a couple of times late at night, and the security has turned me away. So I'll put a mustache on and try to get in on the tour.
That'll do it.
I learned also that entering Dave's driveway, he has two big boulders now to keep us out.
Smart. That's smart. As the layout gets better, the security gets tighter.
Yeah.
Anybody else in the business section?
Thank you, Giuseppe.
Well done, Dave. Let's turn then to the more fun part, show and tell, et cetera, et cetera. And as I warned Al, you're up first, if that's okay with you. Can we have you share the screen and
Oh, sure. Yeah.
and teach us a few things?
Okay. Well, let's see. Before I share my screen, my presentation is very, very basic and relatively short. And well, let's just get started. So, share screen. There we go. Are you all seeing this, Alsper Railroad?
Yes, yes.
This
Yep.
this is my 12-foot by 2.5-foot layout in my one-car garage. And let's see, the green track shows what the green track shows the Alsper part. These two tracks are mainline tracks for Northwestern Pacific and Railroad, and they bring cars in on the on this inner main line into the Alsper arrival departure track, and then the whoops. Well, yeah, we can do that. We'll get there in a second. The Alsper Yardmaster does the switching for the cars that come into the Alsper area. This is a photo. You can see it's pretty small. It is 12 feet. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to say about I'm sorry. These dashed lines indicate where modules. This layout is made up of 3 modules from Coastal Valley Lines Modular Railroad Group. And so these 3 modules are all connected together underneath with pretty thick wood dowels and C-clamps also. Pretty cramped garage, but you can see that Alsper has its own little town and industries back here. It does a little bit of street running here. These are the 2 main Northwestern Pacific lines, arrival departure track that comes in and then goes back out. My workbench is behind this big screen here. Haven't been there for a while, but just a couple closer shots of the layout. A lot of these were done a long time ago when I was still working on things. So the layout is about 50% completed. I did the streets using very thin balsa wood, and the street divider is just white chalk. So there's a lot of things still to be worked on.
I must be looking in the wrong place.
Just another industry shot. Still a lot of work to be done, as you can see.
Yes, not the closet.
Somebody, when I showed this to the highballers, somebody asked me what this structure was, and I said, I don't really know. It looks like some sort of oil or some sort of oil facility. I'm not sure. We have a fruit company bringing in fruit and making canned fruit. This is one of the switchers. It's you probably recognize it as an old EMD SW7 or an NW2. I'm not sure which. I like this shot because of these rolled copper coils. This is I apologize. I forgot to apologize to the highballers because you've all seen this before. But this is a shot of a train coming into the arrival departure track off of the NWP line. This is the front of that train coming in. So how does the yardmaster know what to do with the cars that are coming in? I work on a Mac computer, I found this really nice program that hopefully some of you know Bob Bowditch. He's in PCR and I think he's a programmer, and hopefully you'll get to meet him at the convention. But I found this program for making switch lists, and it's free. And this is the main screen. You make up you make up trains. You see there's no cars yet. You have to do a lot of background stuff to make a train and then make the switch list for it. These are the cars that I've put into this program: loaded, cargo, location, etc. Then you can make the switch list, and there's a lot of different styles of switch lists that Bob has created. The two that I've used mostly are the handwritten, that you can see a little bit here, which I actually did, and the printout of it looks like this, with loaded or not loaded, to an origin and where the car goes to. Then I actually enjoyed much more the waybill. He created his own waybills. Whoops. And then I kind of customized it and created a waybill Al style. And you can see what the waybills, what they look like here. They're based on Tony Thompson's ideas. Mm-hmm. And this is what they look like when they get printed out, and I have to cut them up. And I put them into just a homemade arrival departure. You know, these are the cars in the yard. These are the cars that are still on the arrival departure track. Printed out the waybills and what the cars look like. And that's how the yard master knows where to put cars. Just a couple shots of some of the switchers that I have. A GE 70 tonner that I like a real lot. I'm hoping to put a sound piece into it. Doesn't have sound yet. Somebody once said that when he saw this, he said he really liked the weathering on this. It's not real weathering. It's just a really crappy picture. But, I recently read online somewhere of how to put in a sound decoder into these little guys, which I would love to do, because this size 44 tonner is perfect for Alsper. This was my most recent purchase, an Alco High Hood 600. I want to put, and I did, this was my first decoder project. I actually did put a Soundtrax Tsunami 2 into this, and I've got a little video that concludes my presentation. I think it's going to start running when I go to the next screen here. Or do I have to start running it? Can you hear the sound?
Yep. Yes.
And I apologize for the shaky camera, but somebody said it's not the camera, Al, it's the person holding the camera. But I love the sound in it. Needs some weathering. You all getting dizzy yet?
I was born dizzy.
That's Alsper. And hopefully at some point next year, some of you guys can come out and help me operate it. Thank you.
Hey, Al?
Yeah.
I have a question based on the diagram. I noticed one of your industries is iron ties. What in the world is an iron tie?
Oh, you saw that in one of the slides?
In your diagram, early on. It's in the lower right area.
Oh, that's probably just a mistake, Vern. I don't know.
You can get them at Home Depot,
You
apparently.
got to remember this. This is all a work in progress. Very much still in progress.
So are we going to call you Waybill Al now?
No, that's Tony Thompson, who's going to be giving a clinic, by the way,
Yeah,
at the convention.
he's great. One of the things I'll observe, Al, that mystery industry that you describe as oil, I'm pretty sure that's ready mix.
What does ready mix mean?
Well, it's the component parts of concrete.
Concrete,
So,
yeah.
so there's actually a bunch of them around where they're mixing different aggregates for different applications. And I'm pretty sure that's a Helgen kit.
It is. Yes, you're right.
It looks a little different than they look domestically because it's a European prototype.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got a couple of ready mix plants on ours, and that showed up as one. But call it whatever you want. I'm just saying I happen to know that that's ready mix by intent, but it's owner prerogative what it is.
So empty oil cars would get. How would it work for my oil tankers?
It would pretty much destroy any load of oil
if you put them out of business. Yeah. That is true.
Yeah,
you load them up, you send them down the road, and the guy is going to be really pissed who owns the car.
Yeah, it's gravel, sand, cement. I mean, I don't know anything about it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, but if you want to use it that way, it's probably more of covered hopper loads than oil tankers. But again, the owner decides what it is. Who am I to say?
It's my railroad, right?
That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
Your railroad.
Any questions for Al, or should we move on to Dave, who's basking in the wake of his A score of scenery?
Are we ready? Okay, it's going to take me a minute to set this up. I apologize, but it's the way I can do it the best. Come on.
Somebody asked me who Blaine was, and Blaine is here with us. He put together all of the DCC electrical for Alsper, so credit goes to Blaine for that.
Goes back a ways.
Well, let me ask you this, Al. How does the DCC and electrical work? Does it work well?
Yeah, it's an NCE power cab system. It works beautifully.
Good, because you hate to give credit to the guy if it sucks.
No. It works beautifully when the track is clean.
Because I hate to hear you say Blaine did my electric and nothing works.
No.
Blaine is doing my electric in my layout, so I hope.
Oh, awesome! Well, okay,
and so
you're in good hands.
Okay, we're reasonably. Did you all see that?
Dave stuff.
Yeah,
we can see it.
Okay, good. I started. This is the Teal Boat Works, and I started this project building the roof, which is. Don't ask me why, I don't know, except it was what I was thinking about at the time. So anyhow, here is my jig that I made for the roof trusses. And it's very important because I do a bunch of them. And there they are. And now they're all.
Ooh, look at that.
Yeah.
And so now I got to put something underneath the roof. So here we go. This is a boat works, and it sits in a little valley ravine type thing on a downslope. So I had some serious backfill to be do with the brick foundation and so forth. And there's one of the first walls, and Then we go in here, we're starting to put the roof on top of the building. And you can see what's going on inside there is that looks like a shelf is what is called in a boat building, what's it called? It's called the lofting for the boat. It's where you take the plans and draw them out full size. And so it's very typical of a boatworks. The other thing I wanted to point out in this picture is what you'll see is that what they call a clerestory windows, which are in the full wall there of the roof. Okay. And now, as I said, that it's on a downslope. So what we're seeing here is right in the center of the picture is the door into the place, and then it goes down. And then here is the loft area. And then down below here is the tool shed for all the tools for boat building. And now we're building the walls, which is where you guys normally start. But you can see I had these window frames are all purchased, but where the foundation came up, I had to adapt the window frames to fit the smaller window spaces. And so here now we're back to the clerestory windows. I had to mold my own, and this is the start of the prototype window frame that's going to go in there, and I have to have 8 of them, so that's why I'm molding them up. And now there's the prototype sitting in the mold box, and then I will cast on top of that, and then epoxy into the mold to get my clerestory window frame. And here it is, it's starting to come together. You can see the windows are basically in. What I like to do is you can see nothing's glued together. I just try and stand things in place to get an idea of how I'm building this thing. And you say, why do I need to do that? Because I didn't do this with a plan. Everything's out of my head. So that's why pieces are, I'm kind of mapping things out as I go. Now here we have, okay, so you can see the floor is in, the loft is in, and then over on the right there, you can see all the little pieces. That's where in boat builders will store the masts for the boat. You have these big long things, and what do you do with them? They would have something like that so that they can get the mast inside. And also you see here on the sides, this dark strip of steel beams, and the steel beams are going to hold up beams that go across the building, and they need that so that they can then roll the boats over. They take the chain lift the boat up, roll it over, put it back.
1, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1, 7, 0, 2.
You have reached 491.
Yeah, somebody needs to mute.
43. Please leave a message.
Yeah, let's mute as many of us as possible if there's background noise.
Yeah, suddenly my phone went off. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
And you can see I now have the floor in. I took very thin sheets of plywood. They're like a 32nd of an inch, and so I scribed them and I stained it and I finished it so that I have a nice looking floor, which is very important in boat building to have a level floor. So here it is. You can see the cross beams up above. You can see the building is not glued to the foundation, but have faith, it will be. And you can see the block that's the retaining walls in the back. And then I think next we go to, every boat builder has to have an office. And so I just threw together this little building for the office. The name of this is Teal Boat Works. Stan Teal was a good buddy of mine who had a boat building operation. And I spent a lot of time there working on my own boats. And so that's why it's Teal Boat Works. And then here it is lit at night. And
Nice.
this is the bridge that goes from the office into the boat shop. And you can see it's got a sliding door and it's got a little loft window. It's important in boat building, particularly at the turn of the century. They worried about getting light in the building. And so that's why the clear story windows and all the lights on the side of the building. And then there it is finished. There's a guy working on a snipe sailboat. If any of you guys have ever sailed, snipes are still, I model 1936, but the snipe was first designed in 1934. And so I felt it was appropriate because I used to sail on snipes once in a while. And so anyhow, the guy there sanding on a hull that's about to be completed. And you can see the lights up above from the overhead. And you can see the railway, the way these work was, then they would take portions of the floor out, pull the railway car dolly in, and then set the boat on it and so forth. So that's that. The next one, this is outside. These are boats that I carved, and the one in the foreground is actually sitting on top of a dolly with wheels on it, railroad tracks. This, of course, is HO scale, but for the little wheels, I got some N-gauge wheels to build the dolly and carved the boats. And I have to mention the one in the background. It's a copy of a famous boat from, like 1910 or so. But I love the name of the boat was Cock Robin. So, gee, I had to have that boat. So anyhow, those two guys are sitting in dry dock, and you can see how the doors were made for the to close up the shop. And again, on this side, a window for the into the roofing structure and everything. So that is the extent of what I have to show you for the Teal Boat Works.
That's beautiful,
That's
Dave.
just astounding.
Yeah, nice work, Dave. Very nice.
Very nice interior. look.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Dave, thank you so much for sharing. That was great.
Yeah.
Any questions for Dave before we move on? No, everyone is just gobstopped by the beautiful model.
Thank you.
Next up, John Schmidt, if you're ready. John.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Let me go ahead and set up the sharing. So this is a preview of something that Alice talked me into for our convention.
Yep.
So Paul, if you've been to Paul's place, he's got agent offices underneath the railroad. And there are 2 agent offices, and between the agent offices, they're controlling train order signals for about 8 different towns. The dispatcher, of course, is in another building, and so on and so forth. But Paul has put in video monitors so you can see the trains approaching the towns, but he thought he needed something more to energize his operators. So we got to talking, and he said, how about something like a hit the bell, where towers used to have an alert bell if a train was approaching. So I said, sure, I'll take a look at it. And so what I did was talk to Seth and decided to learn Arduino. So this is my first Arduino project. And what we come up with is a circuit board which has these features. Up to 4 towns on a single Arduino Nano. Each town has 4 sensors, north and south or east and west, distant and near sensors. The board will support 2 sets of analog sensors and 2 sets of digital sensors. I set it up such the analog sensors are auto-calibrated. You don't need to fiddle with a pot on each sensor or worry about if the sun has moved and all of a sudden sunlight's coming in through the window and hitting a sensor. And we've got it set up for up to 4 separate alerts, up to 4 towns, up to 4 separate alerts. So your usual configuration for this approach project there's going to be one tower, 4 sensors, 1 alert, or double that. And then in the central Vermont, we're probably going to put 2 towers on each board. So we'll have the sensors and 2 alerts for each agent station. Or you could set up the configuration of the board to have 1 tower to have a separate alert for northwest approach, or and a second alert for south or east approach, or 4 sets of towers for alerts. The alerts are external, so we haven't chosen the alerts. I've got a demo one, which is just a horn, but you can use a horn or a bell or a voice module or whatever. The sensors can be photoresistors or phototransistors, and you can mix and match for the analog sensors and the digital sensors, 2 towns per board. Okay, so what I did then was to learn Arduino, and it turns out the Arduino Nano had everything we wanted. It had all of the analog sensors, which are these areas down here, had the digital sensors, it's got the digital outs, and so on and so forth. So this was my design for the board. And then I actually have a little design down here for the output for the relay portion of the board. But I actually went ahead and built this, and son of a gun, it actually worked. Here's the breadboarding of the whole thing. I've got a little power regulator here. Here's the Arduino board with the inputs and outputs. This is my test bed. We've got 4 photoresistors here, represent 1 town. We've got 2 phototransistors here and 2 more photoresistors here. And I've done a lot of mixing and matching to see if this would work with lots of different kind of sensors. And so far, so good. It does work. It does adjust to the output and the light intensity that each sensor is receiving, and so on. I originally built just this board, and then I built a little secondary board, which now has the relays on it, as well as a couple of LEDs to show the outputs as I'm testing. And then I've got a little test box here for the alert. I've got a buzzer, $4 buzzer from Electronics Plus, a little pot to regulate the sound of the buzzer, and I've got a little visual indicator, a little yellow LED. So you get the basic components for what this whole approach indicator project was about. So this was my test board setup. Seth and I have been collaborating on this stuff, and I seem to have misplaced. Let me go get it. Here we go. So Seth and I have been collaborating on this stuff, and he's done a professional level board. So this is what, that's the wrong one. Let's go get the other one. Professional level board. So here's your Arduino. This is actually set up for the 4 separate outputs. So 4 towns or 4 towers, if you will. But it's all very, very clean, very, very nicely laid out. And that's what we'll be using going forward. So this project is well under progress. We've installed sensors on Paul's layout, and hopefully this week I'll get up there and we'll put the first board in and see if this thing actually works on his railroad. I've installed it on mine, and it works fine. It led me to do a lot of tweaking in the software, because when I installed it, I decided I wanted to really test it. So I took a logging train with skeleton cars and ran it over the sensors. And so if you take a look at the software, there's all kinds of timers and tweaks in here that you can use to make it reflect your railroad. I mean, there's timers like how long do you want the alert to ring, timers like how long between alerts, and other kinds of things you can actually play with if you want to play with Arduino, or I'll be happy to work with anybody who wants me to specialize to tune up the software for your site if you guys are interested. So so that's my show and tell, and it's been a fun project. I've learned a lot about Arduino, and those things are really pretty cool, frankly. But that's it.
Yeah, thank you, John. And if you don't mind me amplifying a little bit, what's the high degree of difficulty here, and what's really cool about the project is that we wanted to have directional sensing, right? So in these towns where there's a tower operator on duty, they have monitors to show the horizons on both sides. The detection scheme is that the bell will ring when a train is approaching from one horizon or the other, not when a train is leaving, because they didn't want to have whatever you'd call it, false positives ringing all the time. So I imagine our agent operators fast asleep in their chair, and sure enough, the bell will warn them pretty reliably of an approaching train that they need to pay attention to. And then they can go back to sleep as the train leaves town. It won't ring the bell. Any questions for John on any of that?
Yeah, I had a question. Was the circuitry printed in the Orient? I mean, designed and printed and so forth? Was that how it came about?
No, actually, I started with playing with the Arduino and seeing what it could do and what I could learn from it. And once I did that, then it got, I got it to work with one set of sensors, and then I got to work with a second set of sensors. And from that point on, it was just fairly easy to get it all set up for 4 sets of sensors. And then I went and laid this out and wire wrapped the board. And then after I had done all of this, Seth said, "Well, I can make up PC boards for you for that." And I said, "Great, let's do it."
So my question was, really what my interest was, did Seth make the boards or did he have them printed in the Orient? My son did some stuff for me that he had printed in the Orient, and it looked an awfully lot like it. So that's why my question.
Yeah, Seth apparently has a couple of sources, local fast turnaround sources for PC boards, and he gets a run of either 5 or 10 at a time, okay, unless he's got a huge order coming in.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else? Questions for John? Excellent, John. Thank you. That was terrific. We appreciate it. I think I'll have Dave Grundman up next.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Just fascinating.
High degree of difficulty.
Yeah.
I think you might be muted.
Now is that better?
Yes.
Okay, good. I don't do a lot of original type kits, but let's see. These Zoom people are doing something now. Okay, here we go again. Can anybody see what's going on here?
We see a good looking guy looking at his computer.
All right. Yeah, I can't tell because, well, whatever. Anyway, I don't do a lot of original buildings. I've done a couple of them, and for what I'm doing, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Over the years, I've collected a lot of kits. This one that I'm working on now or finishing up is a PDM kit. you might be familiar, was a little power station. So I built this thing up. Things sort of fit, and have a real problem with the corners and whatnot. So you have to go through there and use like a razor knife or razor saw and cut the brick lines back in. I thought about this for a long time, so I decided to put a name on the building. I'll turn this around and you can have fun with it. I don't know if you can. It has, it's one of those things that I've heard acronyms about some power company in Northern California, but this is our power company. Built the thing up. I still have to put some standoffs for the chimneys, and they also make a little smoke unit I can put in there too. So I might do that. I thought about putting an interior in there, but whoever designed this building had never seen a power plant before, because this thing doesn't make a lot of sense. It's a coal-fired plant. The generators are on, or the boiler's on one end, the coal comes in on the other end, and God only knows where they put the generators. So I did that. There's another thing I have that I ran across for the Great Northern. You might be interested in this. You know, this business of if you run a yard of reaching in there or any place else and uncoupling. Well, one of the fellows in Great Northern came up with this thing, and he uses permanent magnets, but he uses those to uncouple and couple. And the usual thing, you have to find a way of engaging the magnet or not. So he showed us, sent me some pictures. This is the first one. And the little mark on the tie there is because the maintenance guy went out and marked the tie that needs to be replaced. Well, that just happens to coincide with where you might put a magnet underneath the tracks. So he sent me this picture. And what he does, he uses a uncoupler magnet for under the tracks. This one happened to be made by KD. And he cut it in half because you don't need that big of a magnet. And by pushing and pulling a rod, he's able to make this magnet move one side or the other. So when he does that, pulls the thing out, it has no effect on the uncoupling bars, so to speak. And then you push it back in and it will uncouple. That way you don't have to reach in the layout. So I thought it was kind of a neat idea. So I contacted him. He actually sent me some drawings that he made up, put this thing together. I don't think there's any copyright on it. So if anybody wants the drawings or anything like that, or the pictures, I'll be glad to email them off to you. And email address, I think, is it's in the call board. So that's all I have.
Excellent. Any questions from the crowd? Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dave.
Our next presenter is Michael Latant, and just as a matter of background, he's going to talk about a section of our Novato layout. The layout is circa 1956. And one of the things that we've tried to do, not because we have to, but because we really enjoy it, is be very faithful to certain key prototype scenes. And really to try to get to the point where someone who knows the territory will immediately recognize the scene through very thoughtful research and selective compression. And we've done that in many places in the layout. The midpoint of our layout is a town called Willimantic, Connecticut. It happens to be a nice big corner of the room. Although the layout is double deck in most places, the way it happens to work out is that Willimantic stands alone. So it's a nice big wide open scene. And I asked Michael to take a look at the real Willimantic, which is a place that he hadn't been and most of us hadn't been. I made a trip there as part of something else. And Michael's going to talk a little bit about his journey in researching and understanding what it will take to model Willimantic in a manner that's quite true to the real town. So Michael, if that's a good build-up, take it away.
It's a great build-up. Thanks, Paul. As Paul said, I'm one of a group of people working on his Northern California model, the Central Vermont Railway. And Paul asked me, along with Bruce Murphy, to put together a model of a town along the southern part, as he said, Willimantic, Connecticut, as it looked when Central Vermont steam engines rolled through it more than 55 years ago. So this is a progress report on this project. And part one is about how I researched and got to know Main Street in downtown Willimantic as it was in 1956. The result of this project is for Bruce and me to put a compressed copy of Main Street into the space that's set aside for it in the model, in a way that visitors from the real Willimantic will recognize our model Willimantic, and also to use commercially available structures as much as possible. Now, this asterisk on the aerial photo is the location of the passenger station and represents just a tiny little rewrite of history in order to have some more interesting operation. In our model Willimantic, the passenger station is still there 6 months after the real one was demolished. So to start me off, Paul provided me with a set of 36 photos from his trip to Willimantic with the most interesting buildings tagged. You can see that in the upper left corner. Several postcards from the 1950s and 60s, and a few old photos that he found in his searches. It was a great start, but I just wasn't getting the big picture of how it all fit together. And so I used Google Maps Street View to explore present day Willimantic on Main Street, block by block. And I was impressed by the number and the variety of classic late 19th and early 20th century commercial architecture that was still standing, which included many variations of ornamental brick, wood siding, and some deco style concrete, an angled building, and even the track side facing backs of buildings looked interesting. But it couldn't show me the buildings that weren't still there, or the businesses that were in them. So Bruce and I needed more information on the relative sizes of the buildings and their 1950s signage. So here's what else came up in some deeper searching that has turned out to be quite helpful in doing this. One valuable resource was a telephone directory of the period from the Library of Congress, their online collection. The ads and the listings were interesting in themselves, and they also gave me addresses, which turned out to be very useful. Now, I didn't find much checking the newspapers, but Paul spotted this series of blog posts about the old downtown, and he recommended them to me for their photos, which were very helpful, of course, but the story in the blog was the real find. A longtime resident named Claire Mickle shared memories of the late 50s and early 60s, including a store-by-store call out in order along both sides of Main Street. So when I combined her recollections with the directory listings, I now had a tool to identify and locate individual businesses along that part of Main Street. In addition to the postcard images in Paul's material, I also searched eBay, Etsy, and some online postcard sellers such as Card Cow, Hip Postcard, and Art.com. And I found ones that showed me buildings that are now gone and views from other angles that will provide details from more realistic models. I also searched for videos and photos on YouTube and Flickr. This is an image from a walk across the pedestrian footbridge into town, showing a good view of the buildings on the south side of Main Street. And this is what our operators and visitors will see in their foreground. But the big find for me was an hour-long illustrated talk by Peter Roos at the Mill Museum. In this image from the video, here's the passenger station in its mid-1950s color scheme. And here's an image that shows above the rear of the rail bus, the back of yet another building on Railroad Street that had been torn down. And I looked for a mid-50s Sanborn insurance map for information on building construction. However, I learned that only those that were published before 1926 are in the public domain. This 1914 map is from the Library of Congress, but fortunately, because Willimantic is an old town, the buildings in the areas marked with red boxes were all still there in 1956. So I'm getting some useful information from that as well. And I discovered Geographic Information System, or GIS maps. They're used to combine information about a location, like its geographic features, property data, population density, and so on, into one map with multiple layers. And this particular one shows current buildings along Main Street, and it will give us dimensions for buildings that survived into 2021 and allow us to figure out dimensions for the ones that are no longer there. There were also some other resources that hadn't occurred to me that showed up in my searches. One was a book in the Arcadia series, which specializes in old local photos, and which I then purchased used for under $10. The photo on the right is the only mid-1950s photo I found of Railroad Street at the end of the footbridge coming onto Main Street, and shows taxis parked between the bridge piers. Nice little detail to include. The Connecticut State Digital Archive produced a photo from the 1940s at the passenger station showing the raised sidewalk and curb where buses and taxis dropped off passengers. A nice detail if we can add it in. And here's something I didn't think I would ever use, a description of the Main Street Historic District from the Register of Historic Places, but it was quite useful after all. I'll show you that shortly. So what came out of all this additional material from many different sources? Well, the answer is lots of details. Here are some from the postcards. The one at the upper left shows two buildings on Railroad Street next to the station that are both long gone. The building on the right has a very interesting roof line with a peak plus 2 levels of flat roof. And an older postcard at the station in the upper right shows a rear view of that same building and what looks like a retaining wall, something I had not seen before. The lower left postcard was the first time that I noticed that the pedestrian footbridge, which spanned the river, spanned the tracks, and then deposited people right on Main Street, wasn't the same height all the way across. And that's good to know for modeling. And in the lower right is the correct Woolworth sign of the 1950s, gold lettering on a red background. This is the one we'll use on that beautiful Art Deco poured concrete Woolworths, and not the later one with red letters on a white background. So this will help us be historically accurate as well. And now back to that description of the Main Street Historic District. Buried in the middle of a paragraph in the description, I came across this gem. On his Willimantic trip, Paul had noticed significant difference between the track level and Main Street. Well, now we know exactly how much, 20 to 25 feet difference, which is about 3.5 inches in HO. And as the description states, the south side structures were built into that grade, as you can see with this building's foundation. And this building only extended part way down the grade. So buildings that go all the way down to track side will have even more of a difference between the front and the rear. So that our model Main Street will be elevated 3.5 inches above track level, and the backs of the south side buildings will all reflect that height difference. And here's a photo that Paul found showing the bottom part of a building. He really likes this building and he wanted it included on our model of Main Street. But the photo just shows the bottom of the building. What did the top look like? And the building just doesn't exist anymore. So this looked like pretty much all we had. So I got to play building detective. First, I cleaned up the sign enough to show that the building was Brown's department store. And then I looked through all the information that I had collected. Here's where the blog, a postcard, and ads from the telephone directory all came together to answer that question. I added addresses from the ads to the business names in the blog. And after doing that, I saw that the block containing Brown's was bookended by the Institute for Savings building at one corner and the Woolworths Deco concrete building on the other. And one of the postcards captured that entire block. Now I could identify all 6 buildings on that block in order. So counting buildings from the corner, I located Brown's as the 1, 2, 3, 4th building from the left on a larger version of Paul's photo. Then counting buildings the other way from the Woolworths end of the block, I located 2 different photos of the front of Brown's taken from opposite directions. So now we have something to go on in modeling that building and placing it onto the north side of Main Street. The 1950s and 60s photos that accompanied the blog chapters that Paul found all were helpful, especially for signage, like this fancy's Bruce's for Shoes in the upper left-hand corner. However, there was one photo in particular that really caught my eye. The buildings on either side looked very, very familiar. Well, for about the last 60 years, there's been a parking lot between these 2 buildings on the south side of Main Street. I recognize those 2 buildings from one of the 1950s photos, and there they are. And in the middle is the missing building between them. In the model, you'll be looking at it from the back, but it still gives us an idea of its height compared to the buildings around it. So what's next for the project? Well, next is selecting which buildings will represent our compressed version of Main Street, beginning with the foreground buildings that will be on the south side closest to the tracks. So out of 17 candidates, buildings of interest that I've marked on the aerial photo, probably 10 to 12 will make the cut. And then we'll follow the same process for the north side, where viewers will see the more decorative fronts of the building. Then, when we've decided on the buildings, we're going to collect all the photos and dimensions for each building on one document, and then deciding which ones can be put together from kits or wall modules and which ones will need to be custom built. So here's something that I learned working on this part of the project that I'm definitely going to follow if we do that again. When you're recreating an urban setting, as it was 50 or more years ago, it turned out to be really important to familiarize myself with the current buildings so that I could recognize landmarks, major changes, and buildings that I just had not seen before as I scanned the images and descriptions of the period. And that's the story of the research phase of the project. It will continue, and you'll see another presentation at some point about the next step, which is building the 1956 version of downtown Willimantic. And thank you all for your time.
Yeah, Michael, that's great. Really next level, you know, sort of almost a murder mystery story of trying to solve some of these questions. Anybody have questions for Michael about his journey and learning about this prototype?
Actually, just a couple of comments, Michael and Paul. Phenomenal background research, just wonderful. I grew up about 40 miles from there, but in about the same time, but about 2 years after your modeling, I was at UConn, which is the University of Connecticut, just a couple of miles up the road. So there's a lot of those buildings I remember vaguely. In fact, there was one picture of Railroad Street that a building no longer there, but it was at one of our hangouts, one of our Irish bar hangouts many years ago. Great stuff. Brings back a lot of memories.
And I'm so glad you said that, Tom, because one of the goals, and we're terrified of people like you, but also excited, right? Because this idea that I mean, we took on this prototype and none of us know anything about the area, right? I had gone to school in New London, so that was it. That was the entire context, right? So our goal is to have people like you show up and say, holy Moses, you've done it. You've captured it. It matches my memory of it. And in fact, you'll be interested to know that on our layout, the main line continues northward to Mansfield. And we modeled the now long abandoned coal depot at Mansfield, which is primarily there to serve the university. And it's not a reflection on you, but the other major coal customer was the mental hospital. So we'll assume that you were resident at the university, but it's none of our business, right? Most of us who have been modeling for 30, 40, 50 years probably should be in the other.
Just for the record, I was at UConn undergrad from 58 to 62, so I'm right around your period. And Willimantic, as you say, it was originally an old mill town. There was a lot of stuff happening when I was there. It was certainly there when you were there or modeling. And it's probably still some of it's still there.
Well, that's what's fantastic about some of these old Eastern towns. And we have them here on the West Coast too, towns where time kind of stopped, right? The buildings were well made in brick, 50 or 100 years ago, and they're just still there. They've been repurposed maybe many times. In the case of Willimantic, there's a couple of things that have developed. One of the cornerstones, for lack of a better way, is one of the most visible buildings in Willimantic is, you can't make this up, the Hooker Hotel.
Yep.
Right, and the Hooker Hotel, it's still there. It's super run down. It's basically a crack house now. Not that I know anything about those things, but I'm just using words. And as it turns out, it's finally, after decades of fighting over it, it's finally a candidate for demolition and rehabilitation of the block. So we're still able to catch these things before they're gone, which is great. So there's a couple of new buildings in Willimantic, but not many, because it's just not a robust place.
Nope. I still have cousins about 20 miles east of there in Onico and Sterling, which is right above New London. And a lot of those towns have not changed hardly at all. In fact, when my grandmother was the town clerk in that town, and when she finally retired in the 80s, for the first time they had to find a public building for the town records, because for years the records were in an addition off the kitchen.
Thank you for the testimonial. That's great.
Brings back a lot of memories.
Any more questions for Michael?
Yeah,
What a great project.
okay, we're here. I know that you had earlier scenes, but you showed a rail bus that was in the video, and there was a rail bus I recognized as made by Mack trucks, and it's basically just a railroad version of like Mack buses. 450 of them at San Francisco Muni had, and 16 that Greyhound Suburban had. But of course, if you had an automatic transmission, the top speed is only 45 miles an hour, because they only had 2 speeds, which is adequate for big cities. But Greyhound, of course, they had 4-speed stick shifts, so they achieve freeway speeds. So I don't know what that rail bus, what kind of transmission it had, but I'm sure it had the same engine that buses had.
Well, I can tell you that on the New Haven Railroad, those didn't last very long. One of them wound up at the local Remington Arms factory for as a plant switcher, and the others, I believe, went to South America. So it was an experiment that was either ahead of or behind its time.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Okay, so that's super cool. The rail bus became a plant switcher?
Yes.
Wow, that's cool.
It would carry crates. Basically, they would load crates on, send it to another part of the plant.
It's a prototype for everything, as they say.
Yeah.
Staggering. Michael, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
We got 2 more left in order of quality. Bill Kaufman is next.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Okay. Now let me see if I can get to where I need to be. I need to share my screen. Oh, let's see. I want that one. Except this is supposed to be, all right, I want to go from doing it. Come on, come on, come on.
Slideshow?
It's a slideshow, but I can't seem to get,
Yeah.
Once I get it up.
Up top, slideshow? In the menu there?
Top slideshow, animate, you skip.
Yep. You see slideshow in the middle on the top menu? But you can do, we can see this perfectly clearly if you want to do it this way.
Yeah, no, well, it'd be nice if I knew how to do it. There
There
you
it is,
go.
there.
All right, try that one. From the beginning, we'll do this. Okay.
Yes.
All right, here we go. Such
Yeah.
as it is. Yeah, this is, I seem to have inherited the scenery responsibility for the central. Now, Providenza says I just claimed it, which may in fact be true, but we sort of have taken over. And so the last session, we showed much of our progress on the Thames shipyard. We've done a lot since then, but I've got a new PowerPoint and all that sort of thing. Thames shipyard is right over there where we just come right out of. This is the yard that goes all the way around. So, okay. The next piece is Ron Buckwalter and Ray Lorber have done an awful lot of work on the Coast Guard Academy. They've done a nice job. They've got a couple of very nice boats that Ron has done, and Ray has done an absolutely gorgeous pier, and that's all real terrific. Providenza has done a model that is going to be most of Connecticut Power and Light. It's huge. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Like it a great deal. And let me see if I can get myself. What am I looking at here? I don't know. What do I want to look at? So anyhow, our GAR is still mostly boxes and mock-ups, and we've done all of that. But today we're going to worry about Dart and Bogue, which is a lumber yard that was there. There's the logo, Dart and Bogue. The biggest problem is, and even, it's really nice working with Michael, and he knows all of these things, and he can connect all of this stuff. But we got no idea what Dart and Bogue looked like. In 1985, they had an enormous fight. Everybody's been there. Paul's been there. Jim's been there. Everybody has looked at it. The problem is that has got no relationship to reality whatsoever. It all burned down in 1985, and there don't appear to be, and we've looked pretty good for any pictures of what was there. So we thought, well, it might look like that. Might look like that. It'll look like that. Heck, it could even look like that. So we were stuck with it. So I went out and looked around and putzed with some 1950s sort of lumber yards. We've got 3 buildings. This is kind of what it looks like right now. Now, you got to understand that most of what I do and what I build is not this wonderful level that my friends all do. I just sort of do something, and then hopefully I'll do it better next time. And so you have to accept this all as, well, this is as good as he can do. This building showed up in some feed from somebody. I can't remember, but it just looks lovely. It's all beat up, and it was a very nice building. And I built one for Providenza for another part of the layout. He's doing, was it Squires? Is that the name of it?
Yes.
And he liked it, and I liked it, and it seemed to fit the area. So it's okay. That works for me. So I started with a picture as a base. Then, one of the things is I don't have to make all those little bundles of wood and all those. That's going to drive me stone crazy. So I started with a picture. And I put some wood on the front and some Campbell, took some Campbell corrugated, that nice aluminum stuff, and ran it through. We had to go looking around for etchant. We got some from whatever the local, if you're not, somebody was talking about making or boards for computer things. The etchant is what you do after, when you got the board all laid out, then you put it in, it eats away everything that you don't want. So lots of nice, ugly smells. So it ended up looking kind of like this. Now, I like that one. I mean, here's the wood that we put on the front and all of this. But all of this, with all its nice little pictures and things like that, that's all just a picture. And this one is even worse. This is the What's It building. Every lumber yard has got some kind of a What's It building. It's where you put all that stuff that you don't know. Where are you going to put all that stuff? Somewhere you got to put the ladders away. If you're going to sell it, or you're going to. So we put we put a What's It building in. And then I got absolutely fascinated by the store itself and its windows and doors. I bought 2 sets of these things from Tichy, and they're the base for the building. I mean, the rest of the building, yeah, okay. The building looks like this. There's the windows and doors down there. That's where all of this came from. Now, I can do a whole lot of more time on how you build all of these things, and we can go back to square one, and I could do a better job. But this sign, the sign on the side was Paul talked about this one last time, how you dart and bogue and how we got the guys there and who was important and yada, yada, yada. So I said, okay, we can stick that on the side of this building. And the whole area kind of looks like this. Jim Providenza has ideas about chain link fences that come along here. And he says that we should be looking at the back of the no trespassing sign and all of those sorts of things. So we'll see. Anyhow, that's all I had to report on this one. This is the Central Vermont. We've built that little area and put it together, and we can, if you really want, we can go back and we can look at the other one, the quickie on the Thames shipyard. If you, Paul, you want to do that, or
we're running short on time, so let's save it for next time.
Then I'll save that for some other time.
Yeah,
that works for me.
Very nice, Bill.
Excellent. What I will say, having seen the model, the use of the photo is extremely effective. I mean, it's really stunning. And so you're modest about how it came out, but I really like this industry, and what anybody can see who hasn't visited it in person. It's an extremely small plot of land that you were allocated to squeeze this in. And it just really feels true to the era, and the photo solution was fantastic.
Yeah.
Questions for Bill?
We'll only lie anyhow.
Yeah, fair enough. So appropriately last and least is me. So let me share my screen here. And I want to talk a little bit about the control panel that I built for Palmer on the northern end. This gives you a sense of the scene in the somewhat completed product. This is the only place on our layout, which is primarily a shelf layout, where there's a few turnouts that are hard to reach. All the other turnouts are manual, very much by design, because we wanted to have fewer things that would actually fail. And I didn't want to power any turnouts that didn't need to be powered. But there's a group of turnouts here at the northern end of the layout that do need powering. And I take control panels pretty seriously. So I want to talk a little bit about how I went about this. in case there's a valuable lesson. First is designing the graphic. I think control panels in some layouts are an afterthought. And I think it's a real good opportunity when there's complicated track work to provide an aid to operators. Hence my use of colors here, red being the main line, the purple being the interchange with the Boston and Albany, which is sort of secondary to what's going on in the area, and a couple of industries that appear in black. The big round circles are going to be toggle switches for the turnouts. The little circles are LEDs. And I think this is very important as part of the design. I didn't mention that I use this program called PaintDesk, but there's many programs that will do this. You can even do it in PowerPoint. To precisely locate where the drilling is going to go was really a terrific choice. So here I brought it to FedEx office, printed the thing out. It's something like 12 by 25 in size. I got from Tap Plastics some acrylic sheet, an 1/8 or 3/16 of an inch will work. It's clear on the top, in white in the back to provide some opacity. So this is just a sandwich. Trimmed down the extra paper, taped this nice and tightly together, and drilled it out. The drill holes look a little bit wonky because there's protective film on the acrylic, as many of you know, which will be removed later. I also should explain this magnet graphic because we talked about uncouplers. We have, because it's hard to reach, a pair of the Rapido magnetic uncouplers. A toggle switch turns them on, a toggle switch turns them back off. That's another excellent uncoupling alternative. We've been really impressed, and what the motor in the uncoupler does is it just rotates the magnet out of the way and back in. And it's also an under track solution, really good. Anyway, moving along, drilled out, piano hinges are in place here, so the whole thing can hinge down. This is the assembled panel, not yet installed. You can see the piano hinges in the bottom, secured by some nuts. It's a 1x4 frame that was built to house this monstrosity. Some of the wiring in its rough condition. One of the things I found, which I'm really happy about, and it's a great source for any of you guys who are doing stuff with LEDs, Evan Designs is a company, and they are offering, as you see here in the picture, 12 volt ready LEDs that have the resistors already wired in. Obviously, the photo is greatly magnified, but it's really slick to have the resistors already in the LEDs, makes wiring easy. And as you can see, this guy's offering all different colors, different wire lengths, for that matter, different voltages, really made the job easier. That said, however, there are red and green indicators on the panel, obviously red for the diverting route. And even though they all have the same voltage, I found that the red was way too bright and was overwhelming you couldn't really see the background graphic, they were so bright. So I got a couple of potentiometers, which, as I talk about potentiometers as sort of a non-electronics guy, I find many people don't know what I'm talking about. And most people do understand that different levels of resistance can result in different levels of brightness for the LED. So that you could just throw resistors into the circuit and see if you can get what you want. What a pot does, though, is it's a knob with a varying level of resistance. And I did this simplistic wiring diagram. A pot has 3 pins. If you're not familiar with it, you just use 2. As long as you've got the center one, you can use either of the outside legs, and you dial it up. So there's actually 2 pots in the circuit, one for the red LEDs, one for the green. You can actually fine tune them to get the brightness that you want. The consequence is I could get them perfectly matched, which made me super happy. Here it is about to go into place. Here it is installed. I had to turn all the lights off in the room to give you a sense of it. It's not a dim corner, but this is what it looks like done. And that's it. But, and it's a great place for us to end. While we're here in Palmer, I want to show you some of the work that Tom Swearingen has done. Tom, as many of you know, is an accomplished, I would say amateur artist, but not really amateur in any way. And we convinced Tom somehow to do some backdrop painting for us. Tom, I think, is going to give a mini clinic on how he goes about it next time we meet. But let's just end on this note because it blew me away what he's done.
Mm-hmm.
This is our engine terminal at Palmer, Mass. Much of the modeling was done by Jim Providenza. The backdrop here is Tom. This is a perfect replica of the 1956 engine facility at Palmer. And the amount of research that went into getting this coal thingy and the water tower, incredible. How lucky are we to have Tom contributing to this layout?
It's 3D. It's astounding.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any questions for me or questions for Tom in absentia? He'll be back next time.
I'd like a quick view of the URL for the LED seller.
Yes, it's evandesigns.com. EVAN, just a guy's name, evandesigns.com.
Thank you.
I also wanted, not that anybody cares, but I also wanted for the uncouplers, when they're in the on position, I wanted it to be a flashing LED. So even for things, flashing LEDs, all colors, all rates of flashing, fast, slow, alternate color flashing. The ones I chose were blue on and then off. Truly amazing. Also, there are some extremely small, extremely bright LEDs that would be excellent for building lighting. They have the flat ones that really would be terrific for signage, and it's stunning how much light they put out. So if you're an LED fan, really a great site and super customer service. As usual, I screwed up my first order and I needed, like one more or something. And the guy I was reluctant to order a $3 thing and make the guys, he was so nice about it. No problem. Really a great spot. And people like to say, I don't have a financial interest, but I can't imagine there's a lot of money in the LED business anyway. So anybody else, questions, comments? And as we've run over time here a little bit, does anybody want to hop on with other things to share before we sign off?
Just a very general comment. I think this has been one of the better RED Zoom meetings that I can remember. And I just want to thank everyone that participated. It's been very enjoyable. Thank you.
What a nice
man.
What a nice day.
Send me the link for this meeting so that I can post it on the Facebook page. That I just need to make sure that I have that link.
It's in the chat screen. It's the very bottom last one that I had to correct the link. But if you open the chat window, you'll see it there.
Well, what I'm hoping is that you'll actually email it to me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. And you'll see as the next branch line comes out that I summarized in detail our last call and even gave people the timestamps so they could see the different presenters and they can go onto YouTube and get all this, because I think, it's good stuff. And I really hope that others will be encouraged. We have some really terrific modelers, and I won't name names, but I'm staring right at you right now, guys. So, some really great modelers who've done some great work. And Vern, David Turner, Dan, I mean, you've all done good. You all have stuff to share. And even if you've done it at the Highballers, we'd love to see it. Please bring it. If it's informal or formal, it doesn't matter. But we'll be back on November 18th. In theory, November 18th is an in-person get-together in Monroe Hall. However, I think the reality is that's looking not that likely. And I don't think a lot of the membership has tremendous demand to meet up quite yet. So either way, we hope to see you on November 18th, probably in this format and some brand new content. So please participate. We're overjoyed that you joined us today. And it's probably the end of our picnic. So with that said, I have my hamburger hat. Let's go. That's a picnic, baby.
Okay.
Right.
November 18th is a Thursday.
It's that Saturday. So I said the wrong date. It's the 20th. It's the Saturday before Thanksgiving.
November 20th. Yeah.
Yeah, 20th. My mistake.
That's cool.
All right, I'm out of here, guys.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
going.
you, everybody.
I'm going. I guess it's a chicken sandwich. It doesn't look like a hamburger. So I'm gonna have a chicken sandwich.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.